Hello and welcome, everyone. This is the Neurodiversity Media Network. Today is our premiere episode of Relationships and Revenue with the operator. I'm so
Yay.
excited to get to be your MC for a change. This is a nice shift. I'm quite enjoying this. It's a role reversal. It's gonna be
Yeah.
fun. But you look a little nervous, Stacy. Like, oh God, what the hell did I sign myself up for here?
Yeah, well, welcome and hello to everybody out there. And for those that are going to watch the replay, it is one of those years. So this year, as the operator, a person that connects small business owners to the resources and relationships that they need in order to propagate more revenue so they can relax just a little bit, I've been making a lot of shifts myself. So with that evaluation comes the evaluation of relationships and how valuable are they to the life I want to live, to generating revenue, and to allowing me to relax a little bit? Or are the current relationships that I have infringing upon my boundaries and becoming some anchors to my movement? And so evaluating that, evaluating how to have conversations to keep myself productive, to keep me in front of me and the things that I need to do, that takes some work. And over the last few days, I have been doing that evaluation and having to have some conversations. So yeah.
That's heavy. That's weighty. That work is always worth it, and also it's always a lot.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think I've spent so much time over the last few weeks talking about building relationships with Marisa, with Alice. There's so much weight that needs to be placed on how those relationships nourish and sustain us and help us grow,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I think that we don't pay enough attention to the capital part of that because it feels materialistic. It
Hmm.
feels out of alignment to say that the reason that we are cultivating these relationships is, in fact, to make money, right? And for a lot of
Hmm.
people, it's really difficult to square that yes, I am building community. I am building relationships. And also, I'm hoping that you'll pay me some money. That's which you can do at neurodiversitymedianetwork.substack.com. I'll drop the link in the comments. You can subscribe monthly or yearly because we are building and creating and sustaining things,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
What does it look like to cultivate a relationship with revenue in mind without being uh capitalistic, boot heel, whatever, right? Pick, pick whatever is bad about capitalism and the fact that we own businesses and are trying to make money. How do you square that?
Well, some of it is making sure that you're actively doing that all of the time. So there's not the crunch to now cultivate a relationship real quick, and, microwave it and then go in for the kill immediately. Um, another
How do we
aspect.
microwave a relationship? Because actually, right, we
Yeah,
try really hard.
we do.
That's what sliding into the DMs is without any prior relationship. That's what cold messaging is in
Hmm.
industries where cold messaging is proven to not work. You can't
Hmm.
microwave relationships. I'm writing that one down.
Right. And that's exactly what it is though. And it really happens because we're doing it out of the burning need inside of us, not a desire, but a need, usually to fill a slot, whether it's a speaker slot or whether it's to get somebody to opt into your thing or purchase your thing. Or it is because we know that that person has a resource that we need to gain access to, and we have a sense of urgency that that other person doesn't have, and so we're going in to create a sense of urgency in someone else that's not there, and that feels a little awkward as well. And so that's what happens, and that's why those things don't stick. Or in the retail industry, why we say there are so many chargebacks, because there is no emotional commitment to this thing, this promise. Even though I may say it out of my mouth, I'm not connected to it. It's not a priority. I don't have a sense of urgency about it. So now when you come back to me and say, oh, well, you said that you would be a guest on my podcast and I asked you to fill out this form and I still don't have your information, I say, okay, I'll get it to you. I have no sense of emergency. You have not tied any reason for me to me that creates a sense of urgency for me to be on your podcast. And if you're asking me,
Yes.
then it's probably because you need me more than I need you. So until you create some type of connection as to why I would want to do this that will drive me, then I have no sense of urgency. And now that creates a sense of tension, that creates possibly some animosity where you now say, well, she don't want to do my thing, or she won't fill out my form, or I asked her, but she, and we don't realize that when we step into that, that that's exactly what we're doing. So the warming up process that you talk about, the kind of flirting with, needs to happen. And do different people opt to go into the relationships quicker than others? Absolutely. Are there one night stands, first night kissing, first night all of the things? Yes, for some people that's fine. For others it's not. They need to get to know you. They want to see you. They want to see your credentials. They want to know who else knows you and what else those other people have to say about you before they opt to go out in public with you, you know? So,
I
yeah.
gotta say, most of my one night stands, especially recently, have not been great client relationships.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
some of that's on my side,
mm-hmm.
but a lot of that's on the client side
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
because there are expectations of me that have been cultivated without knowing me as a service provider,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
So I feel like there is a lot to be said here about how relationships that we're building for profit require so much more nurturing in many ways than friendships, right? Like there's a there's an equivalent exchange when we have a friendship, when we have a social relationship. If there's not, I'm not going to stay in the
mm-hmm,
relationship.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
If there is an expectation of a monetary return, though, it's unlikely that that's going to be reciprocal. It is in some cases, especially in the incestuous circle jerk that is coaching right
mm-hmm,
now.
mm-hmm.
I'm going to pay you money and you're going to pay me money and we'll pay each other money so everybody makes money. Right, right. So if I am expecting to make money from
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
and I don't nourish the relationship to create that kind of exchange, then there's going to be friction in the relationship.
There's going to be friction and there's going to be gaps. You know,
Yes.
I was one of those kids that definitely, you know, science time, and it's let's get out these batteries and get out these wires and let's see how close they have to be before they actually connect, even though they can connect without physically touching each other. But there are those gaps, and just the slightest movement, which is the slightest comment, the slightest post about something political, the slightest thing that somebody else says can cause that person to step away, to not be connected to you. So the object, and when I was saying at the beginning, is to establish the real, true, genuine, authentic relationships on an ongoing basis, as if you're always hiring, you're always taking applications, so that you always have people in places at all times. And not every relationship fills every uh, gap or every need that you have, because some people are not there to purchase, they're there to promote you. Some people are not there to promote you, they're there to support you when nobody else
Hmm.
wants to listen. Some people are there because they have a larger audience and they have a way to get you into doors that you can't get into, or on stages where you would never have known even existed. But you have to cultivate those. You have to
Hmm.
have those conversations. You have to, in a lot of cases, pay it forward. You have to be willing to invest in some way in those other people. And those people believe that you will, in some form of exchange, be able to give back. Now, it's really, what do you bring to the table? I've started saying last year very strongly. It used to be everybody would say, well, is it who you know? It's not who you know. And then it went to, I said, it's who knows you that's important. Now it is who knows you and knows what you do. Because
Right. Because if they don't know what you do, then they're not referring people
yes.
to you.
Yes. So it's your job at all times to cultivate the relationship so people know what you want them to know and what you want them to be able to share with others. You may have a $10,000 coaching package or a $5,000 product that this person has plenty of people they're connected to that could purchase it or use the service, but you haven't talked about it. You may be on a family connection that maybe you met them out at a park or at some family activity, and that's how you establish this relationship. But if you look at the person and look at ideal audience, might they have that ideal audience? Might they be connected to? Is it harmful just to say, I want to share with you some of the things that I have going on right now? This is not to bombard them with everything that you've been doing since you were 7. This is to look at what are you looking to generate revenue out of now, or what are you looking to do to move towards revenue generation and profit in this season of your business or in this season of your life. It may be you have empty nest syndrome right now and you're struggling, and that affects your mental capacity to do other things. But having this conversation because it's family and you're with somebody else who went through empty nest syndrome 2 years ago, that conversation is just as valuable about how did they get through it? What kind of things are they using to fill the gaps? Are they having conversations with a therapist or somebody licensed, or is there a support group that they know of? That lends to mindset ease for you, which then means you can focus, you can stay aligned, and you can stay clear more often because that's not an issue. But people don't see the value in that. They're worried about who can buy from them. You can't get people to buy from you when you're not clear yourself. And we already know that. And when your messaging is not clear, when you're not aligned, when you're focusing all over the place and distracted. So your audience will also feel that. So it's still, who are you putting in your circle? What kind of relationships are you putting in your circle of all values that bring ease to your life on a day-to-day basis? This is personal and professional.
One of so this will ramble a little bit, but I promise I get there. I have a business and personal CRM. It's built in Notion. I've talked about this before. One of the reasons that I built it in Notion very specifically was because my autistic brain requires categorization. It helps me sort, it helps me parse, it helps me understand the relationship between things.
Mm-hmm.
When I was looking at CRMs, there is there's no tag system for who someone might be in your life. There are stages. They are a prospect, they are a client, they are whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
don't live in multiple stages at the same time, which was functionally why I couldn't put this for me into a CRM. And I had to build it in Notion because people don't come in stages.
Mm-hmm.
They may be many things all at once.
Mm-hmm.
You can be a client and also be a prospect for a different offering while also being in my circle of influence and referring people to me. You may be none of those things, but you may be in my personal referral network where I refer work to you. So I had to be able to literally tag people as opposed to categorizing them by discrete relationship status. And I think that that is something a lot of people do without knowing that they are doing it, that they are moving people through stages of relationship without allowing for the fact that you can be in all of the places all at once, everywhere and everywhere all of the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so just to piggyback on that, I am from the wireless world and I am one of the originals with selling the Google phones when they came out. So the big deal about that was that you would be able to take your calendar and your contacts and be able to synchronize them with your phone and always be able to have that information accessible to you, not only on your phone, but on desktop. And that was the way that I sold this device, is that you didn't lose that information. Then a big factor about that was that there's a notes area and there are also category areas on there. And a lot of people don't utilize, and unless they're told or they're given a use case like you just gave for why or how they can do something differently, they don't do it. But I was a big for, if I have a small business owner and this is who I'm promoting to as a T-Mobile store manager, then I'm designating that in my phone for them so that I know and I can go search for small business owners when it's time for me to do a T-Mobile promotion. I know who I need to call. That's not in T-Mobile system. That's in my phone, because that's the relationship that I identify as having with that person. T-Mobile might not give a flip right now, and they don't really have a lot of options for CRM of having the relationship, right? This is customer client relationship manager. They don't have that. They have a system, a database of actual clients or applicants that have completed an application. So that's my connection. Now, how else do I identify out of connectivity? If I know that this person has teenage children, I'm identifying that in the notes. Why is that important? Because when we have a buy one, get one, or when we have a
Right.
Mother's Day or a Father's Day promotion, I have that relationship and that knowledge that I can go back to. And how many people actually feel good about the fact that you remember those personal details?
Right.
Also, when I find people from different businesses, if you're, like on my iPhone now, I will identify a lot of people put names and numbers in their phones, but never put the company. If you're a small business owner, why wouldn't you put the company that they're associated with? Why would you not bother to go ahead and collect that email address? Why would you not go ahead and ask for a website so I can check out what it is that you do or what you're selling in case I know somebody that may need that? Now, I may never have an opportunity to refer this person, but I've collected that data in my phone. So, what happens when I do decide to sync my information to a CRM system is that I've got more data in there than what the typical person would have, because they're doing opt-ins that have a name and an email address. If they're brave enough, they're optioning to get the telephone number. And if they're double brave or they're a Gemini or a Scorpio, then they got that telephone number and made it required. So, you have that information, but you know absolutely nothing else about them. And we don't vet them. We don't go look at, how many people for your friends request do you actually go and look at their full profile? And I don't mean just, I want to see where they're coming from. Do you notice whether they're married or not, whether they have children or not? What there is there a brand color pattern with that may be relative? The podcast producer for the Power of 52, the first thing that I was attracted to is that her brand colors were the same as ours. And then I went to look up her mission and vision, and they were in alignment. Now I know a lot about her. When I come to connect with her, she knows, and she should feel that connectivity. One, because I did the homework, and two, because I've already found reasons for us to be connected. Now it's a matter of, we're back on the money. Is the money going to work for this scenario or not at this time? But I have that to go on, and I want to make that a basis for communication. I want to make that a basis for being in alignment, because we talk about being in alignment. And if you don't know what pieces of the puzzles you have, and if you're not looking at what pieces of the puzzles they have, it's impossible to have alignment or even think or know if there is some alignment, because we haven't done the homework. Because most of the time, we honestly don't care.
And it don't care and or feel like we're being intrusive or invasive. There's a lot about this information gathering stuff that bothers people because they feel like it's unnecessary, but there is no unnecessary data. There are no metrics that aren't worth tracking in some capacity, even if we're not referring to them constantly.
Mm-hmm.
All data is relevant to the greater picture of who you are, who you're serving, and how you are making that monetary exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have, I mean, favorite color is absolutely a line in my CRM.
Mm-hmm.
I will capture people's brand photos so that I can look at them and go, oh, that's who that person is.
Mm-hmm.
You have the ability to really build all of this in, but you have to feel like there's intrinsic value in finding and capturing those bits of information, or you're not going to do it. And for me, it is because I have the memory of an Apple IIe, and I know that I'm not personally going to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not captured, it's lost.
That's true, and that gives cause for people to stay to keep their information updated.
Hmm.
So if you're no longer in, if you're no longer married, and that's not how you want to be identified, you should update that on your Facebook.
I had
Why?
someone tell me the other day that she had gotten a divorce, and I was shocked, like floored, absolutely, completely astonished because I didn't know. And I interact with her posts regularly.
Hmm.
And looking back, I can see that there's a timeline of when she stopped being forthcoming about the details of her life. Absolutely is when this happened. And I didn't guess because we always think people notice more about ourselves than they actually do. They're
Hmm.
paying attention to their own damn lives. If you are not completely open and honest and make me aware, probably more than once, if I'm being very honest, that a
Hmm.
thing has happened to you, I'm not going to know. I might wonder, and if I know you well enough, I'll wonder in your inbox. But
Hmm.
nope, this is not a thing. So
But
this
but if I'm using that as a basis to generate revenue, so if I am writing a book and I'm looking for collaborations with couples, and I approach you because I know you, you're already in my ecosystem. I already engage and interact with you. I don't know your home life right now. I only know what you show me on social media. Yet I come into your DMs and I say, hey, Briar, I am getting ready to put a book out, and you absolutely were top of mind. This is about couples or married couples, and I wanted to check in with you and find out if you'd like a little bit more information about this. Now, if you haven't, and I'm not saying that you're in process, right? Because you may be in
right.
process and that may not be the best thing for you to do, especially, we know all kinds of scenarios where that change is actually going to be triggering and may cause adverse, response
Talk
to it.
from the
But,
scars, not the wounds. That's the
right,
goal. And that's
got
true.
you.
And also, these are major life events. At
Hmm.
a certain point in
Hmm.
time, you cannot or should not feel ashamed or embarrassed that something has happened to you.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
should process that into the greater scope of things and go, I would like my community to know this thing about me.
Right. Or to leave it out. Just having the information as accurate as possible. So let's say that you are going through and you have temporarily separated. You don't know where this is going to go, but you don't want to be confronted with an option to write a book, for couples right now, because that's not where you are. And and I understand you can't think of everything, but I'm just saying to stay as authentic as possible, because some of your referrals will come from that. Some of your offers will come from that. If you are now 54 and your profile shows you at 23 all of the time, this is not a temporary,
Oh, hit
I
me
want
where
to
it
update you.
hurts.
I'm
I
just,
got in my 8-year-old avatar photo. It just came up in my remember this day on
uh
Google the other day, and I was like, oh shit, that picture is 8 years old now. I really need to go and get some headshots taken.
Because if someone is gauging, making an offer to you based on the information that you're giving them, then you want them to have the most updated information as possible so that you don't have to backpedal and explain why the information that they used to choose you now is not valid. Because that then internally to yourself creates some response to that. And I know we've talked a lot about that before. I mean, there are just so many things that authentically, and then you want the current representation. But like, even for you though, you don't look a lot different than your
No,
actual
I don't.
picture. I mean, that's the thing about it. So, but for some people, they absolutely do. They may have gone through weight loss and no longer represent that, and now they're being offered, some type of deal, brand deal, or wanting to have a conversation to do an article, but that's not them, and there's no documentation. And so when you say, well, no, I've actually lost 50 pounds or whatever it is, now that's a story that somebody else may have been able to use and you may have been chosen for. But then you're not going to be represented in that way, and so you're missing out on the opportunities to capture you authentically for who you currently are, to be able to tell about that journey. So, but those relationships too, if I noticed this big on LinkedIn when I decided I'm going to hop back on LinkedIn, but my LinkedIn profile was all about retail and all of my recommendations and everything. So then people are coming, I'm changing my little header, and my description says that I'm the visionary, I'm the virtual resource broker, but all of the rest of the stuff doesn't align. So slowly but surely, I've been making adjustments to that. Because if you notice, people come to your profile, yet they don't decide to follow you, or they don't decide to request you, then you're going, again, that little feeling like, why? If 60 people looked at my profile and only 2 people followed me or asked to be friends, we know I'm not for everybody. But is there a disconnect? And is that with the information that you have in front of other people? And sometimes it is.
And I think that relationships and building them for revenue purposes rely a lot on you to be very clear about who you are and what you are bringing to the equation,
Mm-hmm.
so that there's not a shock factor
Mm-hmm.
when something creeps up. I apparently need to talk more. I thought I talked a lot about how much cannabis I consume, but apparently I was mistaken, and am working that in more
Right.
because I don't want it to be a shock. And that's the thing. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want there to
Exactly.
be a fundamental mismatch in our
Mm-hmm.
relationship because you
Mm-hmm.
have a problem with me as a cannabis smoker, right? I want there to be absolute clarity about that, because if I'm not for you, it's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that there's a mismatch in how we are communicating about ourselves in
Yes.
order to be clear about what our expectations are for a relationship that includes money. And you can't separate the two if you hope to have a successful business. You cannot be out here just building relationships with no concept of what the end result could be. It doesn't have to be, and I'm not expecting it to be. That's the difference. But I
Mm-hmm.
have to know what it could be.
And to set the intentions early. So if
Hmm.
the intention is that I need speakers for a summit, when I go into the DM, because I do have a course and it's called It Goes Down in the DM, because I do believe that you can create and establish those relationships, proper expectations. So I have most likely engaged with something on their social outside of before I got to the DM. I have checked out their bios. If they have a link tree or a link in bio, then I have gone to that, because I want to know who I'm working with before I come inside and start talking in the DMs. It's very rare that I will ask somebody, where are you from? Or where is your business, in the DMs, because I've checked out the profile. And I would want people to do the work on me before they come into the DMs if this is a cold relationship. I need you to do that because that's how you knock the chill off. Is that you bring me information about me that you already know, that I know you had to get it from somewhere. And so you did some work. So now I'm going to listen to you, and then I will entertain that thing that you may ask me about. I want a compliment before I want
Right.
a request.
Right. I need that
Or
ass pat sandwich. And
yes.
there's no problem with building one,
Mhm.
deliberately constructing,
Yeah.
uh, because you know that that is a requirement for cultivating a positive relationship with clear boundaries. The thing
Mhm.
about boundaries is you can say what they are, but unless you state what those boundaries are to other people, then you can't be shocked if I don't know what your boundaries are.
And that's true. And that also then goes to when you have the specific need and you're creating relationships or connections with a specific need, such as I want a speaker, this person was referred to me on the outside, or I saw them doing a live, and now I want to inquire about whether they're available. Uh, with that intention, that is what I am expressing. That is where my mindset needs to stay, and I need to stay on that path throughout this entire time. And why do I say this? Until that is complete, until that task is complete. Because what has happened, especially since the pandemic, is because we need touch, because we're looking for sisterhood, because we're looking for people that are like us and that have some of the same problems and are finding solutions to those problems themselves too, because we want that type of feeling. We're going into and saying, I need a speaker for this event a month from now, but now we're having all kinds of conversations like this is our best friend. And we're disappointed on personal basis when somebody says no to the professional thing that was the initial reason for us going in. And so we have to keep that separate initially until we have gotten the answers to what we have said. We have set the expectation. I came here because I'm having a summit, and that I would love to have you as part of it. And I want to have more of a conversation, or can I share the information with you now? And once we get the yes or the no to that, now, if you want to pursue and continue to follow them and engage in all of that, it's up to you. And if they don't reciprocate, that personal non-reciprocation, that's not on them, that's on you, because now you have a new expectation that they're not aware of, that you haven't shared. So now if you think they're a great person and you've realized that they like to go to cigar lounges too and they're a bourbon girl too and that type of thing, then you need to share that in their feed. You need to let them know about the connectivity. And if there's an opportunity to participate in something else together, then and you decide to go to the DMs, it's okay, and share that. But again, don't have the expectations that these people that you are creating revenue generating relationships with are going to be your personal friends, because they have no
Mhm.
obligation to do so.
So my sales guru, the operators were one of, Grace Edison, has what she calls three asks. Do you want to know me? Do you want to know what I do? Do you want to pay me money for the thing that
Hmm.
I do?
Hmm.
And you have to ask those questions in order. You have to establish the relationship at the outset, knowing that question 2 and 3 are coming. That's how you establish your boundaries around what this relationship is going to be. So, how do we how do we make this work, Stacy? How do we use these relationships that we've built and cultivated and turn them into revenue without breaking a relationship?
Sure. One of them is that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And many people will say, oh, no, that's not true. Like, I couldn't care to. It's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole nother track. And I have specialists for that. But, we want to know that, again, I'd say I want somebody to come to me. And when they mention me in the DMs by my name, that they spell it right because it's at the top of the chat.
For real. If
And
you don't know that it's I and not Y, I
or
got
IE.
right.
Right. So
Oh
then
man, that one hurts.
your attention to detail and you're wanting me to participate in something is it's already shaky for me. Now you have some stuff to make up before I even listen. Because to me, you don't care. If you don't care to spell my government name right, now I understand my moniker has a crazy 8 in the middle of it, but my government name, that you won't spell it right, you saw it on the outside on my profile before you went into Messenger, it's at the top of the Messenger chat, then to me, that's already an issue. And for some people, it's not. But when you do that, then that's my response. And then as we move through other stages, let's say it's engagement on social media, then if you want somebody to do something for you, then it doesn't cost you to engage with their social media. It's the easiest way of flirting. Like is
And that's not even really network dependent. It doesn't matter where you go. If you want to build a good, solid relationship with somebody in a way that you will eventually ask them for money, you comment on their shit. That's it. It's not even that difficult, but it does take time because it's about an ability to see that you care over time. Right? It's not just,
absolutely.
I'm here in your inbox to show you I care. Now pay me money. That's not gonna work.
No, it is back to school when you saw somebody out on the playground and they did this phenomenal thing and you're like, "Oh, that guy's super. Like he's a hero or he's my hero." And then you continue to follow, right? You're not just going to go up and, "Oh, you're my hero and I really think you're cute." No, you're going to continue to watch because you want to see how they engage with their peers, with the other guys. You want to see whether they tell secrets to the guys out loud, whether they blurt out things or not. How did they treat their last girlfriend? So you're looking to see some things, but if you don't stay close enough, you'll never get that information. And the same thing goes with social media. That person that I may want to speak because I heard them on a live once or on a clubhouse room once, and I decide that I want them to be on a stage, on a physical face-to-face stage, that not may not be their best presence. That may not be where their genius is. So if it is audio and now I'm going up saying, you want to do a face to face, I'd love to have you on the stage. Now, I didn't do enough homework first. Have I seen anything on their social? If I scroll back, are there any badges on there? Do they have conversations about that? Have they thrown their own event? And people are saying, like, that's a lot. You're inviting somebody to speak? That's a lot. And so you need to know the background. You need to hear how are they speaking to their audience when they're going live or through the statements that they're making in their social media. Is that the way that you would want your audience to be treated? Because anybody can turn around and say something else, or this is how I would show up, or this is my signature talk. But if that's your signature talk, but your day-to-day talk doesn't match that, Houston, we've got a problem because
Mm-hmm.
that's not your authentic self. And if I end up with somebody from my audience working with you, and then they're saying, well, did you know that did you? I don't want that reflection on my brand. So I need to vet and do my homework. And that engaging with is what allows you to be able to do that. That talking to other people. So for some people, it's testimonials, is going and looking at the testimonials, looking, Googling up somebody's name. And if this person says, I helped them reach six figures for their launch on blankety blank, and you go back to their social media, and 2 months ago when this happened, there's no details of a launch of any kind. There's nothing, you know, you, so was there really a launch? And so then if you question those things, now we're going to talk about red flags. If the red flags are there and you don't do the research, then that's on you. So do what you can. And that's what that relationship building is. Have that coffee chat. A lot of conversation about, I don't
Mhm.
have conversations for free. Those
Ooh, that's a
conversations,
big one, right?
right?
I don't talk to anybody for free. Well, then I'm not ever going to pay you money. And I say this as a person who is on the air damn near daily. You can see and watch me every day. And still, if you're going to be paying me more than, $500 or so, I think it's fair if you want to have a conversation with me first.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, I don't know, that's part of my relationship. And maybe it's because I'm intuitive. Maybe it's because of whatever reasons. Maybe it's out of having long shadows and not wanting to be burned. Maybe it's out of chronic disappointment. We can start throwing all the things out there and talk about the angles and how that affects your relationships and your revenue. But then I need to have a conversation so that I feel good about who I'm working with, if
Mhm.
I'm giving up money or if I'm asking somebody to be part of my thing and pay me money. Either
Mhm.
way, I think a conversation needs to be had, like you said, at a certain dollar amount. For me, it's like $1,000. The $1,000, we need to connect before I give you currency. And I want to connect with you before you give me currency. I don't like the idea of just paying for that thing on my sales page and now we're stuck together. And my job is to give you results when I don't know what your pre existing conditions were before you came to me, or vice versa. Is that I opt in and I have no way to get a hold of you. I send an email before asking some clarifying questions about the offer. I don't get a response, yet I still make that purchase. Then that's on me. I should have seen the
Mhm.
red flag because your availability wasn't even good for me to spend money with you. So now I might have a better chance, since I put money in your pocket, of communicating with you, but I'm not to think that or have that expectation. And I should go into it the same way. Like we say about relationships, people want to see people change after you start going together or after you get married. Now you're like, oh yeah, well, I can change them. All
Oh
these
yeah,
things I
because
thought was
it's
broken,
gonna work out
nah.
so well.
How you took them in, you need to be willing to accept that way forevermore if that's the option you're given, or for a period of time and say, no, this ain't my cup of tea. Relationship is not going to work. Or what now out of the relationship did work so that we can keep that and throw away what doesn't. If we're not good, if we're not, chemistry doesn't match, or the backgrounds of our family are going to create conflict constantly, can we agree to be friends now? Can we agree to have that companionship that is working for us? And maybe some things will change over time, but not to have the expectation, and don't go into and build the relationship with the expectation that there will be change,
Mhm.
because that is not guaranteed. So
Yeah, and I think that this is a great place to close. Ultimately, what we are saying to you here is that building a relationship to capitalize on it requires you to do more research, although frankly, you should probably be doing this much research in your
Mhm.
personal relationships anyway.
Yeah.
But that's a conversation for another time. If we're getting into a revenue generating relationship, you need to know who that person is
Mhm.
as best as you can. And obviously, we all make mistakes, we all miss stuff. People absolutely can delete or hide or scam. There is there's a lot of things that can happen in the sphere of online business in particular that until it happens to you, you may just, it may not be a thing that's on your radar. But
Mhm.
once you know, building a client or customer profile is the most important thing that you can do to
Mhm.
sustain that relationship over the long haul of the revenue cycle. And for some of y'all, like, we're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
of dollars.
Mhm.
So if that's the case, you really need to be aware of who they are, what they value, what's important to them, and who they want to be. Because if you don't know those things, you can't actually make the argument that you are worth spending their money on.
Absolutely. And when you start talking about the higher dollar amounts, that's the same as the time that you spend when you're going to purchase a vehicle. If you say that I just need a get around town car, then you're just looking for possibly maintenance records, or that it was owned by a mechanic, or that it was, something like that, because you just need to get around because your intention is to be able to replace it at some point. But if you're saying that I want an economical car that I'm going to ride out for 7 years in financing that vehicle, and I need for it to go through some changes with me, you're going to do more research on that, to look at prices, to look at gas mileage, to look at the option of electric, to look at a lot of things. And it's the same here. And that relationship may be established if you decide you want a Tesla. That looks like looking it up, but going to the dealership. That looks like finding somebody at the dealership that you may have, laugh with and cut up jokes with. And now this becomes your future person to connect with. Okay, I'll take your business card. And now when I want to inquire about something, I'm contacting this person. That's a relationship. So every relationship is not about, oh, are we going to break bread together? Are we doing this or that? This is the relationship I'm establishing. And I also can make referrals from that. If somebody else
Mhm.
says, oh, yeah, I'm looking at getting a Tesla, I got a girl for you.
And again, the my obligation as the customer or client is different than your obligation as the service provider. We're not entering into the relationship on in the same
Right.
place.
Right.
So, it's my job to do my due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
It's your job to know who I am well enough to be able to service me. And
Absolutely. So
that's
you
it.
came in, and that's the big deal. That's the big deal for sales, and how the sales agents that can go to sleep at night and aren't narcissistic are doing this because they're establishing relationships. Even now, there are online sales persons, and so from online, yeah, they're collecting intake data, but they're also trying to make some connections as to how they can sell those features and benefits of what they have based on what you tell me. So I need to do a needs analysis to find out some information so that I can stick these features and benefits to that. I need to make an emotional tie. Decisions for sales are emotional decisions. So the more senses and emotions that I can tap into, the better probability that I'm either going to repulse you or attract you. And
Mm,
so that is now, the big thing. So absolutely, the higher the dollar amount is, the better job you have to do in vetting if you're putting out the money. And then as the person that has the product and service, the better job you do in determining who is that avatar, where do they hang out, so that it's not I'm just going out here and I'm just going to start feeling around and touching and flirting with everybody. Because again, if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to no one. And it's the same in the personal relationships. So yeah, we can, in the future, we'll talk about
Yeah,
some
I
of these
think
angles.
next time we'll lean into the features and benefits portion
Good old
and
fab.
how that builds into your relationship research. Y'all,
Hmm. Hmm.
this has been so much fun, Stacy. I'm so excited for this show. Okay, so you can find Stacy at theoperator.com. You can find the Neurodiversity Media Network. Links in the comments. It's neurodiversitymedianetwork.substack.com. If you've not subscribed yet, you should get on our list because all of my podcasts come out. And there are exclusive benefits for subscribers, including a weekly short breakdown of all of the shit that I have talked over the week
Woohoo!
and what you may want to focus on. Okay, we will see y'all in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for being here, Stacy. Apple of my eye, you are a joy and a delight. And we will be back again in 2 weeks, y'all. Have a good one.